In the heart of a picturesque suburban neighborhood, nestled among blooming cherry blossoms and neatly trimmed lawns, stood the house that the Johnson family would call home. It was a two-story Victorian, with a charming red brick facade and a welcoming front porch. Mark and Emily, along with their two children, Lily, aged 9, and Sam, aged 12, had been searching for the perfect place to settle down, and this house, with its spacious rooms and quaint character, seemed to whisper promises of new beginnings and cherished memories. The moving day was bustling with activity. Boxes labeled with scribbled names of rooms were carried in by movers, their contents waiting to transform this house into a home. Amidst the chaos, Emily directed the placement of furniture with a decorator's eye, while Mark busily set up the essentials, ensuring the transition was as smooth as possible. It was in the attic, a space they envisioned as a cozy playroom, where the discovery was made. Hidden beneath a dusty tarp, Emily found an old doll. It was peculiar, with glassy eyes that seemed to follow her movements, and an intricate Victorian dress that had faded with time. His porcelain face, cracked in places, held an eerie beauty. Intrigued and a bit charmed, Emily decided it would be a quaint addition to Lily's room. She imagined it as a conversation piece, a relic from the past that added character to their new abode. The doll was placed on a small wooden chair in the corner of Lily's room, its eyes gazing silently across the space. Lily, with her youthful curiosity, was initially fascinated by it. She named it Charlotte, and would often be found talking to it in hushed tones. But as days passed, her fascination turned into unease. The doll's unblinking stare began to unsettle her, its presence in her room, casting a shadow over her once bright and cheerful space. Emily noticed the change in Lily's demeanor. Initially dismissing it as a child's fleeting fears, she soon realized that Lily's discomfort was genuine. She attributed it to the stress of the move and the new environment, but decided that if the doll was the source of her daughter's unease, it had no place in their home. With a reassuring smile, she lifted the doll from its chair, telling Lily that it was time for Charlotte to find a new home. The decision to part with the doll was made with little fanfare, a simple solution to a child's temporary fear. But as Emily placed the doll in the trash bin outside, a chill ran down her spine, an inexplicable feeling of being watched. Shaking off the sensation as a trick of the mind, she returned inside, unaware that this act would set in motion a series of events that would shatter the tranquility of their new home. The following morning greeted the Johnsons with the usual bustle of a family settling into a new routine. Breakfast was a hurried affair, with Mark and Emily discussing their day ahead and the kids preparing for school. The normalcy of the morning was interrupted when Emily walked into the living room and froze. There, sitting upright on the couch with its head tilted slightly, was the doll she had thrown away the night before. Confusion swept over her. She called for Mark, who shared her bewilderment. They examined the doll, questioning each other, wondering if the other had retrieved it from the trash as a change of heart. But neither had. The children denied any involvement too. Lily, upon seeing the doll, recoiled with the same unease she had felt before. The family collectively decided to dispose of the doll again, this time placing it in a garbage bag and driving it to a dumpster several blocks away. In the days that followed, an unsettling atmosphere began to envelop the house. Objects were found out of place, a phenomenon Mark attributed to the chaos of unpacking. But then, other, more inexplicable things started happening. Doors would close on their own, soft whispers echoed in the hallways at night, and cold drafts swept through rooms with closed windows. One evening, as Emily tucked Lily into bed, Lily whispered, "Mom, Charlotte doesn't like being thrown away. She told me." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She reassured her daughter it was just her imagination, but Lily's words lingered in her mind, sowing seeds of unease. The doll's reappearance became a recurring event. No matter how many times they disposed of it, it would return, each time to a different spot in the house. One morning it was in the kitchen, another evening on the bathroom shelf, always with those glassy, knowing eyes and a silent, mocking expression. Fear began to seep into the Johnsons' lives. Sam, who had initially dismissed his sister's fears, claimed he saw the doll's head turn to watch him as he passed by. Emily, too, started to feel a constant watchful presence, an eerie sensation that crawled under her skin. As the strange occurrences escalated, Mark decided to delve into the history of the house, hoping for a rational explanation. His research led him to a troubling discovery. Decades ago, the house had been home to a young girl who had met a tragic end. She had cherished a doll, one eerily similar to Charlotte. Armed with this knowledge, the family's resolve to rid themselves of the doll strengthened. They attempted to destroy it, first by fire and then by burying it in the woods. But each time, it returned, unscathed and seemingly more malevolent. The doll's presence no longer just an unnerving anomaly, but a harbinger of something sinister, something that refused to be forgotten or discarded. The relentless return of the doll, now named Charlotte, began to take a toll on the Johnson family. Sleepless nights were common, as the once peaceful house transformed into a stage for inexplicable and terrifying events. The sound of soft footsteps in the hallway, the creaking of floorboards in empty rooms, and the faint childlike giggles that seemed to emanate from the walls, plunged the family into a state of constant vigilance and fear. Mark's discovery of the house's past added a haunting context to their plight. The girl who had once lived here, named Abigail, had been deeply attached to her doll. Her untimely death had left a shadow over the house, a shadow that now seemed to cling to Charlotte. As the paranormal activities intensified, the family's skepticism turned to belief in the supernatural. Objects began to levitate and shatter without explanation. The doll's facial expression seemed to change subtly, showing hints of malevolence. Most disturbingly, Sam, the more rational and skeptical of the two children, woke up one night screaming, claiming he saw the doll standing at the foot of his bed, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Desperate for answers, Emily and Mark sought advice from various sources. Online forums led them to others who had experienced similar hauntings, and books on the paranormal offered theories, but no solutions. The family even reached out to the previous owners of the house, only to find out they had left due to similar unnerving experiences. Realizing they were dealing with something beyond their understanding, they decided to contact a local medium. The medium, an elderly woman with a reputation for communicating with spirits, agreed to visit their home. Upon her arrival, she was immediately drawn to Charlotte. She explained that the doll was a vessel, a conduit for Abigail's restless spirit, trapped in a world she couldn't escape from. The medium's presence seemed to stir the supernatural forces in the house. Lights flickered, and a cold wind swept through the rooms as she prepared to conduct a séance. The family, huddled together, watched with a mix of fear and hope. During the séance, the medium channeled Abigail's spirit. The air grew heavy, and the temperature dropped. In a voice not her own, the medium spoke, revealing Abigail's story. She had been a lonely child, misunderstood and isolated, finding solace only in her doll. Her death, a tragic accident, had bound her to the doll, her only friend in life, and now her anchor in death. The medium relayed Abigail's feelings of abandonment and anger. She didn't want to harm anyone, but her confusion and anger had manifested in the malevolent events plaguing the house. The medium implored the family to help release Abigail's spirit, to give her the peace she never found in life. The session ended with the medium outlining what needed to be done. A cleansing ritual was required, one that would sever the ties binding Abigail's spirit to the doll and the house. The family, though exhausted and frightened, agreed. They were determined to end the haunting that had turned their dream home into a nightmare. As the medium left, the house seemed to sigh, a temporary calm settling in. But the Johnsons knew it was only a brief respite. The true test, the ritual that would determine their fate and Abigail's, loomed ahead. They braced themselves, hoping to finally free themselves and Abigail from the torment that had bound them together. The night of the cleansing ritual arrived, cloaked in an oppressive silence that seemed to engulf the Johnson house. The family gathered in the living room, where the medium had set up her tools, a circle of salt, candles flickering with an ethereal glow, and various herbs and oils that filled the air with a pungent aroma. At the center of it all sat Charlotte, the doll, its eyes eerily reflecting the candlelight. The medium began the ritual with a solemn warning. This was not merely a ceremonial gesture, but a confrontation with a troubled and potentially dangerous spirit. She instructed the family to hold hands, forming an unbroken chain around the circle, their unity a shield against the supernatural forces they were about to engage. As she chanted in a language that seemed as ancient as time itself, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The air grew denser, the shadows deeper, and a chilling wind began to circulate, extinguishing some of the candles. The medium's voice rose above the growing turmoil, steady and commanding. Then, the climax of their haunting ordeal began. The doll, Charlotte, started to levitate, rising slowly above the circle. A faint ghostly figure materialized above it, the spectral form of a young girl, Abigail. Her expression was one of confusion and pain, her eyes searching desperately among those gathered. The room shook as if in the grip of an unseen tempest. Objects levitated, spinning chaotically. The family, terrified but resolute, maintained their grip on each other's hands, their eyes fixed on the unfolding spectacle. Emily, her maternal instincts overriding her fear, spoke directly to the apparition. "Abigail, we want to help you," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "You don't have to be trapped here anymore. You can move on and find peace." The medium continued her incantations, her voice now commanding force that seemed to pierce the veil between worlds. The air crackled with energy, the boundary between the living and the dead thinning with each word spoken. Abigail's spirit, caught in the tumult, seemed to waver. Her gaze met Emily's, and for a moment, a flicker of understanding passed between them. The chaos in the room reached its peak, the crescendo of supernatural force that threatened to overwhelm them all. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The doll fell to the ground, lifeless and inert. The ghostly figure of Abigail, her expression now softened, gave a faint smile before fading into nothingness, released at last. The family, exhausted and shaken, remained in their circle, processing the reality that the haunting was over. The medium, her energy spent, assured them that Abigail's spirit had moved on, no longer bound to the doll of this world. The room, once a battleground of otherworldly forces, was now just a room. The sense of menace that had permeated the house was gone, replaced by a quiet that was both empty and comforting. In the aftermath of the ritual, the Johnsons sat together, a family tested by the unimaginable, bound closer by their shared ordeal. They knew the night's events would forever be etched in their memories, a haunting tale of a spirit lost and a family's scourge. But for now, they took solace in the silence, the peaceful end to a nightmare that had threatened to consume them all. In the days that followed the climactic ritual, the Johnson family experienced a profound sense of relief. The oppressive atmosphere that had once dominated their home had lifted, replaced by a tranquil normalcy. The house, once a source of dread, gradually reverted to being just a structure of wood and brick, no longer echoing with the echoes of a troubled past. Mark and Emily, now more vigilant than ever, watched carefully for any signs of the supernatural. But there were none. The nights were quiet, the shadows benign. Lily and Sam, though still processing the events, began to sleep through the night, the nightmares that had haunted them, replaced by the peaceful slumber of childhood. The doll, Charlotte, once the vessel of Abigail's restless spirit, now lay discarded, a lifeless porcelain figure with no more power than any other inanimate object. The family debated what to do with it. Destroying it seemed unnecessary, yet keeping it felt wrong. In the end, they chose to lock it in a glass case, a reminder of the surreal events they had endured. Attached to the case was a note, detailing its history as a warning to future generations. The medium, before leaving, had offered words of comfort and caution. She reminded them that the supernatural world was vast and often intersected with the living in ways they could not comprehend. Her parting advice was to respect these forces, and to be mindful of the signs that might indicate their presence. In the aftermath, the family found themselves changed. There was a newfound appreciation for the mundane, the ordinary moments of life that they had once taken for granted. Dinners were livelier, conversations deeper, and the time spent together more cherished. Yet, there was also a lingering sense of unease, a realization that the world was more complex and mysterious than they had ever imagined. They shared their story with a few close friends and family, but mostly they kept it to themselves. It was a personal journey, a chapter in their lives that was difficult to believe and even harder to explain. The community around them remained oblivious to the ordeal the Johnsons had faced. Life in the neighborhood continued as usual, with its petty squabbles, local events, and the daily hustle and bustle. But for the Johnsons, there was a deeper understanding of the world, a respect for the mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of reality. As time passed, the memory of the haunting faded into a surreal dream. But the lessons it taught them remained. They learned about the strength of their family bond, the power of belief, and the importance of confronting fears. The Johnsons continued to live in the house, no longer a place of fear, but a home filled with love and unity. They moved forward, carrying the knowledge that sometimes, the most extraordinary stories happen to the most ordinary families. Months passed since the night of the ritual, and the Johnson family gradually adjusted to their life free of the supernatural occurrences that had once plagued them. The house, which had been a source of fear and mystery, had become a true home, filled with laughter and the comforting routines of daily life. Emily often found herself reflecting on their experience. She had grown more introspective, her outlook on life broadened by the realization that there were forces beyond their understanding. She embraced each day with a newfound appreciation, cherishing the simple moments with her family. Mark, too, had changed. The skepticism he once held about the supernatural had given way to an open-minded curiosity. He often found himself reading about other unexplained phenomena, a hobby that was both fascinating and a subtle reminder of their own encounter with the unknown. Lily and Sam, resilient in their youth, adapted quickly. The ordeal became a distant memory, occasionally revisited in hushed conversations during family gatherings or quiet evenings. Lily, once terrified of the doll, now spoke of Charlotte with a sense of wonder, as if she had been part of a fairy tale. The decision to stay in the house, once a topic of debate, was now a unanimous choice. The family had grown attached to the place, seeing it not just as a structure, but as a testament to their journey and resilience. The house had its quirks and creaks, but they were now met with fondness rather than fear. The glass case containing Charlotte became a peculiar artifact, a conversation piece that occasionally drew the attention of visitors. The note attached to it, detailing its history, served as a silent guardian of the truth, a truth that was hard to believe unless one had experienced it firsthand. As time went on, the Johnsons found themselves more involved in their community. They participated in local events, made new friends, and became known as a kind, albeit slightly eccentric, family. The story of their haunting never fully surfaced, its details kept within the family, a private chapter in their history. In this newfound peace, the family thrived. They celebrated birthdays, holidays, and life's milestones, each event strengthening the bond that had been forged in the crucible of their shared experience. The house, with its walls that had once echoed with the whispers of the past, now resonated with the sounds of a happy family. And so, the Johnsons' story became a testament to the endurance of the human spirit, the power of family, and the profound mysteries that occasionally touch our lives. Their experience with the supernatural remained with them, a reminder of the unseen world that exists just beyond the veil of our understanding. But it was no longer a source of fear. Instead, it was a chapter in their lives that had brought them closer together, a unique journey that they had navigated as a family. As they looked to the future, they did so with open hearts and minds, ready for whatever life might bring. The house on the quiet suburban street stood as a symbol of their journey, a beacon of the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary. And within its walls, the Johnson family continued to live, love, and grow, forever changed, but always together.